Ever feel like you're, wrestling with one of those problems that just won't budge? You're
Yeah.
stuck staring at this, tangled mess, no clue where to even begin.
It can be pretty overwhelming.
It really can. So today's deep dive, we're going back in time to ancient Phrygia.
Oh, a history lesson. I like it.
Well, sort of. We're looking at the legend of the Gordian Knot.
Ah, the Gordian Knot, classic tale. What are we hoping to untangle today?
It's a story about these seemingly impossible challenges we face and those, surprising ways we can overcome them.
What's fascinating about the Gordian Knot, though, is that it's not just about, literally untying a knot. It's about perspective, right?
Yeah, I see where you're going with this.
It's about realizing that the most effective solution might actually mean shifting how we're seeing the problem itself.
I like it. So let's set the scene, right? We're talking ancient city of Gordium, modern-day Turkey.
Okay, I'm there.
Picture this incredibly intricate knot tied to a chariot dedicated to the god Sabazios.
Dedicated to a god adds a certain weight to it, doesn't it?
Talk about pressure. Legend has it that whoever could untie this knot, well, they were destined to rule all of Asia.
All of Asia. That's a pretty high-stakes reward.
Right. No pressure.
Mm.
And it wasn't just like some flimsy knot either. I mean, people had been trying to untie this thing for generations, no luck.
Generations. Wow, they must have really wanted to rule Asia.
It became like a symbol, this symbol of an insurmountable obstacle.
I bet. That kind of thing gets a reputation.
Imagine the frustration, though, right? Like, you'd get so fixated on untying the thing, you'd never even stop to think, wait, is there a better way to do this?
You get tunnel vision, for sure.
And then enter Alexander the Great.
Mm-hmm.
333 BCE, he's on his quest to, conquer Asia. He sees this knot, everyone's stumped.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he does?
Let me guess. He doesn't try to untie it, does he?
He takes out his sword and slices right through it.
Classic Alexander.
Mm.
Bold move. But, it's a perfect example of what we call reframing the problem.
Yeah.
He could have spent, I don't know, days, weeks even, trying to untie it like everyone else.
He probably had people telling him to do that, too.
Oh, I'm sure. But he chose to redefine the challenge, you know what I mean?
It's like that aha moment.
Yeah.
You're stuck in one way of thinking, and suddenly, bam, there's this new path.
Yes, precisely. And it's brilliant because his solution, it wasn't about brute force. It was ingenuity, recognizing that sometimes that straightest path forward, it's the one no one else even thought about. And the incredible thing is this whole approach, this challenging the status quo thing, reframing the problem, we see it over and over. It's like throughout history. It drives the biggest, most groundbreaking innovations.
It's true. Think about the innovations that have really changed how we live.
Right.
They almost never happen because someone just followed the rules or, did things the way they'd always been done.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's take Steve Jobs, right? And the iPhone. Think about it. Back then, every single mobile phone, what did it have? A physical keyboard.
Oh, man. Can you imagine, going back to that now?
It was just the accepted design.
Feels like ancient history now.
It does, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
that was the norm, But Jobs, he took one look at that problem and he was like, nope, I see a different problem. He didn't want to make another phone. He wanted a device that was intuitive, something that would just disappear almost into how people were already living their lives,
He saw what a phone could be, not just what everyone else thought it should be.
Exactly. And in doing that, he didn't just create a product. He created this whole technological revolution.
And that's the thing, revolutions, they're built on challenging those assumptions.
Mm.
But it wasn't just creative vision with the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
It also took guts. It took courage to act on that vision.
It's that leap of faith moment, right? You have to go from the world of ideas to actually doing it. And that is scary, especially when you're saying, hey, everyone thinks about this thing. They're wrong.
It's easy to get stuck in that, analysis paralysis, right?
Yeah.
You're just weighing every little thing, researching endlessly, waiting for the perfect moment to make a move. But
that moment may never come.
exactly. What if we took a page from Alexander's book, right?
Right.
What if we embraced that, calculated risk?
It's about understanding that action, even if it's not perfect, it always teaches you way more than just thinking about it forever.
This makes me think of another innovator who, embodies this, Elon Musk.
Oh, right.
Whether it's Tesla and electric cars or, pushing the boundaries of space exploration with SpaceX.
He is constantly pushing against how it's always been done.
Right. Challenging the status quo, making these, bold moves forward.
And you know what? Those are two industries that, for the longest time, they just seemed like totally resistant to change. The automotive industry, they were perfectly happy just making tiny little changes to the same old gas-guzzling engines.
Hmm.
And SpaceX, they challenged the whole idea that space was just for
The
governments.
Musk, his willingness to disrupt, to take those risks, the calculated ones, it's led to, like, some of the most exciting advancements, I think, in our lifetime.
It just proves that the people who are willing to cut through those Gordian knots, they're the ones who change everything.
And it's not even like just about these huge, like, world-changing innovations, is it? This whole cut through the Gordian knot thing, this reframing problems, acting decisively, I mean, that applies to, like, our own lives too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get kind of, caught up in those big stories, those historical figures, but these are lessons that apply to, like everyday challenges just as much. Think about it. Have you ever just felt stuck? Like facing the same obstacle again and again?
Yep.
Ugh, yeah, totally. That feeling of just being, I don't know, stuck in a rut. You're trying to untangle that knot, but it's not budging. Maybe it's a job, no
Mm,
longer feeling it, or a creative project that's just lost its spark. Even a relationship that just feels strained.
exactly. And in those moments, I think it's so valuable to ask ourselves, what's my Gordian knot? What's that assumption, that one belief I have that's holding me back, keeping me tied to something that honestly isn't working anymore?
Because sometimes I think the best thing, the most freeing thing, is to just question, like the whole way we're even looking at the problem.
Yes, instead of, just trying to find solutions within the same old box, the same constraints, what happens if we just imagine something totally new, like scrap the whole thing, start over?
Okay, yeah, I like that. But give me an example. How would you use this Gordian knot thinking for, like, I don't know, a career change?
Okay, sure. So let's say you've been in one field, one industry for years, but it's not exciting anymore. You've tried the little things, changing roles, maybe different companies, but that feeling, that, blah feeling, it's still there.
Yep, been there. You start to wonder, is this really it?
Right. And it's at that point that we need to channel our inner Alexander. Instead of just looking at the same old paths, a similar job, but in a different company, or, climbing the ladder in a field you don't even care about anymore, what about a totally radical shift?
You mean like a complete career 180? I don't know. That's kind of terrifying.
It can be, absolutely. But that's where the calculated risk comes in, right? You acknowledge the fear, sure, but you don't let it stop you. You think about your skills, what you're passionate about, and ask, like, okay, if I couldn't fail, what would I do?
Create a path that's, like, completely unique to you, even if it means, going off the map a little bit.
Exactly. And this idea, it's not limited to careers either. Think about relationships. Maybe they're stuck in this like loop of disagreements or there's a lot of resentment. Instead of trying to force the other person to change, what if we changed how we see things, how we communicate?
Or that creative project, the one we keep putting off. We always think we need the perfect time, the perfect idea.
What if we just started, embrace the messiness, the imperfection, just like allowed ourselves to explore?
Sometimes, action just leads to clarity. The best way to untangle that knot is just to start pulling on a thread and see where it goes.
And look, this isn't about, making these huge life-altering decisions every day. It's about cultivating curiosity, being open to new possibilities, being willing to challenge those assumptions that are, maybe holding us back from something amazing.
Just like the Gordian knot story. Sometimes that most direct path, the breakthrough, is the one that, breaks the rules a little, cuts through the noise, embraces a new way of looking at things.
So I guess the question for everyone listening is, what are your Gordian knots? And more importantly, how are you going to use these lessons, these ideas of creative problem solving, taking action, thinking differently to build a life that feels more, fulfilling, more you?
Love that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, everyone, remember, don't be afraid to challenge those assumptions, reframe that problem, and take that leap. Your own Gordian knot is out there, just waiting to be, untied, sliced through, maybe even completely reinvented.